Warum haben dein Bullsinn, wenn du ihn sehen kannst? Why cook the bolt when you can pull it? The Mannlicher Model 1895 is unusual in employing a straight portable action as opposed to the more common rotating bolt handle of other rifles. It combines a two-lug rotating bolt head similar in construction to that found on a Mauser rifle, with a pair of helix screws cutting the bolt body to turn back and forth movement of the bolt handle and the body into the rotating movement of the bolt head. The extractor performs both the unusual function and also has a till attached with interfaces with the slot of the cam surface of the bolt head to prevent the bolt head from rotating as a result of the striker's spring pressure once it has been unlocked. The angle of the cam surface of the bolt and the bolt body is different from the angle at which the locking recesses are cut in the receiver of the rifle. The result is that the first 3/4 of travel of the bolt body results in the rotation of the bolt head, but only about 1/8 of the rearward movement. This gives mechanical advantages to the system and accomplishes primary extraction. The result of this is that an user can pull the bolt back and forth in two movements, rather than the up-back, far-down of conventional turn-bolt rifles. It is consequently renowned for the combination of a high rate of fire, around 20 to 25 rounds per minute, with reliability and sturdiness, although this requires a decent care and maintenance for it to work. During the Austro-Hungarian trials in 1892, rifles suffered some torture tests from firing 50,000 rounds without any form of lubrication. Okay, troops of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, this is how you load your Mannlicher Gewehr Model 1895. The rifle is loaded by the means of a 5-round en-bloc clip, which when loaded with cartridges is pressed into the magazine of the rifle, which is retained and acts as the feed lip of the magazine. When the last of the 5 rounds had been chambered, there is no longer anything retaining the clip in the magazine and it falls out of the port in the bottom due to gravity. There is a button on the front of the trigger guard which allows the user to eject a partly or fully loaded clip from the magazine when the bolt is open to unload the weapon. The clip will be ejected from the weapon quite energetically as the full force of the following spring will be pressed against it, hopping out of the whole magazine. The rifle is not designed to be loaded by any other means but en-bloc clip. Attempts to single feed the rifle in absence of a proper clip may cause damage to the extractor, as it is not designed with enough travel to overcome the large rims of the 8x50mm rims or the 8x56mm rim cartridges used in the Model 1895 Mannlicher, unless they are fed under the extractor from the clip. It was initially adopted and employed by the Austro-Hungarian army throughout the Bosnian annexation, World War I, and even retained post-war by both the Austrian Republic and the Hungarian Republic and their armies. The main foreign use of the Mannlicher 1895 was Bulgaria, which started in 1903, acquired large numbers and continued to use them throughout the Balkan Wars and the World Wars. After the defeat and the dissolution of the Austro-Hungarian Empire during World War I, many were given to other Balkan states as war reparations, and even Czechoslovakia. A number of these rifles actually saw some service in World War II, particularly by second-line reservist and partisan units in Romania, Yugoslavia, Italy, and to a lesser degree, Germany. Post-war, many were sold as cheap surplus, with some finding their way in the hands of African guerrillas in the 1970s, and many more being exported to the United States as sporting and collectible firearms. The Model 1895 will also serve as the almost exact template for the ill-fated Canadian 1905 Ross rifle, though the later 1910 used a more complicated interrupter tread instead of the two solid lugs. The M1895 was originally chambered in the 8mm Model 1903 Chaffern Patron, or the 8x50mm Mannlicher cartridge. Between the World Wars, both Austria-Hungary converted the majority of their rifles to fire the more powerful 8x56mm rim cartridge round. Yugoslavia converted at least some of their captured Model 1895s to 7.92x57mm Mauser, fed by the stripper clip instead of the original model en-bloc clip system. This conversion was designated the M95/24 and the M95M. The M95/24 is often mistakenly attributed to Bulgaria, but the 8x57mm was never a standard cartridge in the Bulgarian military. These conversions are prized by collectors for their relative scarcity and chambering a commonly available round, but suffers from a fragile extractor and a lack of replacement parts. Just some variants here for you. The Infantry Repeating Gewehr Model 1895, or the Infantry Repeating Rifle, was the basic variant. It chambers the 8x50mm rim Mannlicher cartridge. Its iron sights were graduated from 300 to 260 paces, or from 225 to 950 miles. It was used during World War I and the majority of the Austro-Hungarian troops used it, and before that it was used in the annexation of Bosnia-Herzegovina. The Stutzen, or the short rifle, designating the Repeating Stutzen Model 1895, or the Repeating Stutzen Model 1895, was mainly used by special forces like shock troopers, pioneer battalions and other light infantry, and even some cavalry during World War I. It chambered the 8x50mm rim Mannlicher cartridge. Its sights were graduated from 500 to 2,400 paces, or 375 to 1,800 meters. The carbine. The Cavalry Repeating Carbine Model 1895, or the Cavalry Repeating Carbine Model 1895, was chambered in the 8x50mm Mannlicher cartridge and used by the cavalry units of the Austro-Hungarian Army as a replacement for the Mannlicher Model 1890 carbine. Although the cavalry did not need any use for bayonet lugs due to the swords and the lances, during World War I it was fitted with a shoots-and-light front barrel band with bayonet lugs after mounted cavalry units were found ineffective, especially on the Italian front and the Serbian front. The sniper variant. The main difference from the standard rifle and the Schutzen was a telescopic sight mount. The scope was mounted slightly on the left so the rifle can be fed by the en-bloc clip. Approximately 6,000 long and short barrel sniper rifles were made from the years of 1915 to 1918, especially on the Italian front, with great effectiveness. The M9530 was the first conversion of the First Austrian Republic by the Steyr Mannlicher during 1930 to 1940. These rifles carried the letter S meaning Spitzer stamped on the barrel. The main modification was the rechambering of the 8x56mm cartridge. Other changes were the converting of the ladder sights from the older pace unit to meters, and addition of a brass front sight protector. Most of the M95/30s were sent to Bulgaria during 1938 to 1940, where front sight protectors were removed. The 31M or the M95/31 was a conversion done by the Kingdom of Hungary. Rifles were converted from 1931 to 1935 by Fag in Budapest and carried the letter H meaning Hegres Tautoni, or the pointed bullet, stamped on the top of the chamber. The conversions were similar to the Austrians, included rechambering the new 8x56mm rim cartridge or the pointed bullet cartridge, a new metric ladder system, and the addition of a front sight protector. Long rifles were cut down to carbine length and distinguished the M31AM. They were not in use for much time, and they were restored to the new storage where the new 35M rifle was introduced. A small number were rechambered but were not cut down for the Hungarian governmental guards. These had special long bayonets. The M95M or the M95/24 is a conversion of the 7.92x57mm cartridge by the Kragujevac arsenal in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. These rifles featured the Yugoslavia M24 Mauser barrel sight, similar handguards, and are fed by a 5-round stripper clip. Their extractors are prone to breakage when they are being fired single shot. Some of these rifles have been found in the Kingdom of Greece by the German forces during World War II and were mistakenly attributed in Greek origin. The bayonets. There are two main variants of the bayonet. The first one is the standard bayonet, while the second one is the NCA variant that features a hook Coulton and a golden lanyard. The overall length of the Mannlicher was 360mm, or 14 inches for the gun, and the blade was 248mm, or 9.8 inches long. The bayonet was unusual in that the edge was faced upwards when mounted on the rifle. The majority of them were made by the CEWG and the FGGY. Bayonets were originally not serial numbered. Later in World War I, when resources were limited, they started to manufacture the replacement, the Irsat, or the bayonet. These were fast produced, cheap, and were made completely out of metal. A number of Model 1960 night luminous sights were issued during World War I. The rear night sight was a small brass plate that was placed underneath the rear sight leaf. The front sight clamps were around the rifle's front sight base, producing a luminous sight that can be seen even at the darkest of nights. The wire cutters. The Soldat or the wire destroy device for Mannlicher type firearms were also sometimes issued to the rifle during World War I. During assaults, when soldiers would run into barbed wire obstacles, the wire destroyer would then grab onto the wires, and the soldiers would shoot through it. There could be wire destroyers. A Soldat or a wire destroyer device for the Mannlicher type firearms was sometimes also issued to the rifles during World War I. During assaults, when soldiers would run into barbed wire obstacles, the wire destroyer or the Soldat would sometimes grab onto the wires and the soldiers would be able to shoot through them. Although this came with a drawback. Your rifle must have pre-existing bayonet lugs to actually mount this bayonet. Various other improvements to wire destroyers existed. Some originally designed by the Mosin-Nagant rifle that were captured on the Eastern Front were easily modified to fit the Model 1985. Some were also captured by the military blacksmiths. Some were also crafted by the military blacksmiths. That was a doozy. But now, we run down the countries of who used it, and we'll be on our way. Alright, and that's it. Here we wrapped off. Okay, that's basically it, but let's see how much people actually use this rifle, and let's see what we can find out. Albania. Approximately 4,000 rifles were ordered by the Albanian Revolutionary Committee in 1911. The Albanians actually received their number of rifles after the First World War as war reparations. the First Austrian Republic in service from October 1918 in Oslan. Of course, Austria-Hungary in service from 1985. The Kingdom of Bulgaria actually started ordering them in 1989 during the Balkan Wars, and in 1903 they actually ramped up production and shipping to them. Czechoslovakia, war operations, but over 200,000 Mannlicher rifles in their possession, making the Sudeten German Party, mostly getting them from the Third Reich when Austria was absorbed into the Reich and, second-hand stuff. Finland had approximately 2,300 rifles during the 1920s to the early 1930s and the Winter War, in the 8x50mm rimmed Mannlicher caliber. They were used by the SA and very, very collectible even to this day. Ethiopia knew some, I don't know how they got there. Probably second hand after Ethiopia had been invaded, but I don't think so. Maybe invaded, or maybe news before, during the 1900s before World War One. Nazi Germany, news by the German police in World War II, and the Netherlands mostly. The Kingdom of Greece had a number of Model 1895/24s and 95Ms lying around in the IS cartridge, and after the Axis occupied Greece in April 1941, arrived with the disposal of the Wehrmacht under the designation Gewehr 1306G. So these are basically issued to occupying force police, mostly yet again. Kingdom of Hungary, they got their lion's share due to the dual monarchy dissolution, and they even came back as the 31M and the 25M, and even saw some new size policing before they actually fought against the Reich. But anyway, the Kingdom of Italy, after the dissolution of Austria-Hungary, they actually received some M95s and marked as the AOI, or the African Oriental Italia, and the rifles were captured by the British and were tripped to India to actually train with. Kenya is a weird one. Maybe the Mau Mau? Maybe before? I don't know. It's not the Protectorate of Kenya, so maybe the Mau Mau? Who knows? Probably the Mau Mau. Ottoman Empire, more than likely a ally. Second Polish Republic, received by the armed police in the 1920s and war preparations. Portugal, probably some armed reparations as well, as they did fight in World War One, but I'm not too sure. The Qing Dynasty, the elite Weiwu courts was issued with the significant number of imported Mannlicher rifles, the most modern thing that China had before the Yang Kai-shek and the Chiang Kai-shek rifles. So even though they were kind of based off the German patterns, but the General Lu rifle and the Chiang Kai-shek rifle were basically their most modern rifles, but this was the most modern rifle up to that point. Francisco West Spain. During the Spanish Civil War, the Soviet NKVD agency supplied the Communist Republican forces in Spain with 30,000 Mannlicher WZ Polish rifles and their carbine variants, purchased from the Polish Ministry of Defense. The rifle shipment did not reach the Reds, as it was captured by the Franco-nationalists. Most Spanish Civil War weapons ended up in the US surplus and marketed during 1959 to 1962. These guns have been additional Spanish Civil War markings and various graffiti. Kingdom of Romania issued to second-line troops during World War I and World War II, because it's not a republic or a Democratic People's Republic of Romania, so World War I to World War II maybe. The Russian Empire. During the First World War, captured rifles were widely used by the Russian army because of lack of domestic rifles and cartridges for them. Rifle cartridges were carried in a coletta or the P. Russian efforts to convert the service rifle with the turning ball action mode in the Gant rifle into a self-loading action was unsuccessful. That's why they decided to alter the straight pull Mannlicher 1985 rifle, but they arrived at the conclusion that development of automatic rifles required a different approach by inventors. The Kingdom of Serbia, captured during the Balkan Wars from Bulgaria and Austria-Hungary during World War I, also received by the war reparations in original caliber, passed down to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Somalia, interesting, probably modern day pirates, you need what you can get. The state of Slovene Croats and Serbs. Also, during the Austro-Slovenian conflict in Croatia, passed on to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Turkey, obviously surplus maybe. And finally, the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, which you heard about 14 times in this video actually, like, not even joking. This has been at least once per paragraph. But Yugoslavia inherited a great number of Mannlicher rifles from the territories that were part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the end of the First World War, and the Kingdom of Serbia. Rifles were originally converted into the Granda Mir. Around 122,000 were converted by the 7x92 by 57mm Mauser caliber as the M95M, and the M95/24. The rucksack, back and forth. The tampon, the Italian troops' worst nightmare. The gun that feared both Allied and foe alike. The Mannlicher, ahead of its time, faster than a speeding bullet. The Austro-Hungarians' last great achievement. Rucksack. Alright guys, thanks for watching. A long haul, but I made it. Wow. Hour and 20 minutes. Alright, not bad, not bad. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this now so I can edit all of this in time for 10 o'clock. So I hope you learned something. Enjoy.